You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame has been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. Adding to that is the Doghouse, and so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. If you're looking for a way to make a real difference, check out Bethany Children's Health Center. They're helping children reach their full potential as a leader in pediatric rehabilitation. They're also building a new outpatient center of excellence, and it's going to be a landmark right on Route 66. Want to learn more or even schedule a tour? Just head to bethanychildrens.org and click on the Ways to Give tab. That's bethanychildrens.org. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We're down at Bethany Children's Health Center. Return guests. Gives me great pleasure to introduce return guest Carol and Albert Gray. We did a little podcast, which was kind of introducing the book that you guys have done. And this is a podcast that is continuing on from the tour that we've just taken as well. Thank you so much for showing me around this beautiful facility. But after we did the first podcast, you know, people who know you, this is going to come of no shock to them, but there's a lot more to the story than you can fit into 25 minutes. So I'm excited to dive into your story. Kind of want to dive into a little bit about, you know, how you grew up and what leads you here, and really dive into the background of that. And then obviously we'll kind of talk about this special place. But tell me a little bit about kind of your upbringing. Albert, you're the younger brother. 53 model, if I remember right.
Exactly, 53.
And so, Carol, I'll have you start of just kind of what it was like growing up. And you know, Albert isn't your only sibling; you have others as well. And just kind of what your Oklahoma story is and your origin story, centered around faith and your family's business.
Well, we had a great upbringing from our great parents who really loved the Lord, loved us, loved each other. And so there's a lot of special memories. I may have said it on the other. You could roller skate right down Main Street once 5 o'clock came. So it was a great time. The church was a big part of our lives. I mean, it was Sunday night, Wednesday night. And so the one thing about me, I was tongue-tied, almost tongue-tied. People would check me out, and it was recommended to my parents that I be placed in a residential place for speech. So it's hard sometimes, even when I'm speaking now, I'm aware of that. But they wanted to recommend me placed in a residential place, and Mom said she's too young, she's too little, she's going to find another option. And she said, I came up with a great idea. She said I was about 3 years old, out playing in the backyard, and I would be humming songs from church. She said, oh, she loves music. So drove me to Anadarko once a week to Mrs. Murphy for voice lessons. Now, the kind of voice lessons I had to take, she'd start out, Mary had a little lamb. I just say it, Mary had a little lamb, over and over, just really exaggerating. And then I would learn to sing. And so through that experience, found out that I had a little bit of a talent for singing, loved music. Around our home was a lot of music. We'd play Howard had to take piano lessons, no matter if you wanted to or not. You took piano lessons,
Yeah.
and organ lessons, guitar lessons. So music was a big part of our lives. And then for a little girl that couldn't talk plain, ended up one day going to Nashville, making a long play album. The title wasn't Now I Have Everything, but it was talking about Jesus. Now I have everything. So it's been quite a journey. So music has been a big part of my life. Children has also been a part. Having brothers that were 15 years older had all these children. So I was always carrying the little ones around and teaching Sunday school, like I said, about 13 years old. So then went for school for elementary ed. So all those things you look back and think, coincidence? Someone who couldn't talk plain. So we have speech therapy. I remember we had one speech therapist. Now how many have we?
We don't know.
It's massive.
Right.
But take some of the insecurities that you have and use that, and every day, even to be asked to do this, I thought, Lord, I can't do this. But just one day at a time and say, I'm here, I'm willing, whatever you want to say through me. Sometimes I stumble. But having a heart for the Lord, I think, was the biggest thing that was taught to us, loving the Lord and ministry. So that all led into where we're at today.
Yeah. What was your childhood dream growing up as a kid? Do you think you wanted to be a teacher? Or...
I was asked that just recently, and people have all kinds of things. And I don't mean to sound too religious, but the point is I just wanted God's will. Even as a young teenager, I would say, Lord, whatever your will is. I don't know if I want to tell this or not, but one of my greatest desires was to be married, marry a preacher, and sing in the choir, and have lots of children. But I came to a place that I said to the Lord, if my life can be more effective for you by being single, I will be single. And so I can't, my life has been fulfilled. I've had lots of children. People would ask how many children you have. I hope about 100. So
Right.
it's been and I look back now thinking about that. I probably couldn't have put everything into this if I'd had a family of my own, because it was at those early days, it was every hour of the day that we were on call. And all
Well,
that.
up till midnight.
Yeah, just to
You
me.
actually went to bed, and the lawyers and I continued to talk.
I know they did.
Yeah. Alan, what do you remember about your childhood?
It was a great childhood. Little league sports. My dad was born in 1911, so I was born in 53. So you can figure that out. He was over 40 years of age, and he had a third grade education. So he worked in what they called a filling station back in the day, and changing people's tires and stuff. And when he gave his heart to Christ, that's completely changed his life. He wanted to learn how to read, and so time we were born, from 1950 to 1953 in a 54 model. That's the top three. And then my oldest brother is 1935.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big stretch. And then they were born 5 years apart. But my older brothers, they worked with mom and dad not as sharecroppers. Sharecroppers means that you get to farm the farm and you share it with the owners. Yeah. But they were workers in the field.
Tenant.
They literally picked the cottons and did the thing just as workers.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what my mom and my older brothers did. And then they saved enough money that my dad was an entrepreneur guy, and he gave his heart to Christ, and then he just started buying the farms. And he never did become a sharecropper, but he ended up having several sharecroppers that would rent some of his farms out. And so it's amazing how God put us all in this one big family, and the education was never really something that was expressed to us. They never said you need to go to college. If you have third grade education, you don't ever farm next to your farm, you don't really need to go to college to do that. You need to be willing to work hard. But my oldest brother accidentally went to college and then ended up doing kind of a master's program at MIT. Yeah. And he was an engineer for AT&T. Yeah. He had a big time job. And so he kind of set the pace, somebody to look up after. And so that put Carol into college. And then I was impressed when she was going to college and reading her books about, she went to a Christian school. She went to your school, Southern Nazarene University. And she went to Southwestern
Christian.
University or college also. And I remember she had some evangel classes, how to win people to Christ. And I remember just as a kid, that was my heart desire, is just to tell people about Jesus. And quite frankly, here at 72 years of age, it's still my heart desire. Now, I don't do it quite as in your face as I did as a kid, you know. If you die tomorrow, do you know that you're going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell? You know, I mean, I don't, not quite. I work on relationships first and foremost, and then the Lord does the inviting, not me.
Well, Dad.
And so Dad was, he was always
a great soul winner. He really was.
And so we would come over. We're 60 miles southwest of Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And they owned Gray Oil Company at this time, and several farms, and the time we were born. And so we were shopping in Oklahoma City and coming to the city to take musical lessons from some very good musicians. And then we went to Stamps Quartet of Music down in Waxahachie, Texas for
6 weeks at a time.
Well, yeah, I think you had to be invited that second 3 weeks, because I was always kicked out after the first 3 weeks. But she stayed 6 weeks. I don't remember staying 6. I might have. But we went down Waxahachie, Texas, and J.D. Sumner, who went with Elvis Presley, he was putting on this program down there. And so we had an opportunity that a lot of country kids didn't have, because mom and dad loved music.
Yeah.
They loved their family, and they loved giving them opportunities. And so by the time I was 15 or 16, there was nothing that I couldn't achieve, because I just believed with God's help, you could achieve anything. And so it was almost a prosperity type religion I had, but it wasn't. I mean, I understood at an early age, because my dad didn't teach that. He taught, you're going to go through difficult times, and it rains on the just and the unjust.
Yeah.
You know, so I wasn't like, in that particular, I don't have anything wrong with people that wants to believe that, but I believe that there's going to be challenges, but God is with you during all those challenging times. And I'm thankful for that, because we're here at a facility that has rehabilitation for kids at no fault of their own, went through a car accident or a genetic birth defect or whatever, no fault of their own, that how did they get through those difficult times? And so what's so rewarding about that upbringing, the seeing how God is with us during difficult times, they actually get to see it played out on an everyday basis. And it makes you so, it humbles you, but it makes you so faithful of believing that God is in control, that I have to control the way I speak about it, because I don't want you to think I'm some type of fanatic, but I am really fanatically believer that Christ is in control, and he can get us through difficult times. And so that's what we've had the opportunity to do. Where I came, when I started out kind of, my dad never did chase money, but he did buy a lot of farms and oil royalties and different things, but it wasn't for the money's sake. And he treated people right. He helped kids go to college. He paid for college education at Southwestern School, and he helped preachers, and he was a big giver in front of us. So I knew I could achieve anything I wanted to achieve, because that's how I was raised up. But I learned that it's not about what I want to achieve, about what does God want to do in our lives. And I think the Children's Center, from that transition of growing up and then back to the Children's Center, being able to be here and seeing the difficult times that people goes through, and that you have a chance to walk alongside them, but you can't really help them, but Christ can. And then you see that opportunity of how he does that over and over again for 40 plus odd years. And so that's what really has motivated us from that childhood that you're talking about. And, you know, people learn different things from different experiences. When I was reading about you, one time and how that your folks brought you over here from Europe and basically dropped you off.
Yeah.
And what did you, I forget what you said about Bethany, and you came to Bethany. And
Well,
said,
yeah, I was dry. It was August. I want to say it's probably August 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
And it was the summer where it was over 100 degrees for a record amount of days.
Yeah.
And again, the rental car and drive up Meridian from the airport, which is not a glamorous drive at all, right? And I'm thinking, what have I done to myself? It's just me and my dad at the time, and my golf clubs didn't arrive. It's 1,000 degrees outside. I got here and I just like, you're driving down, 39th Street, and there's just car lot after car lot. I'm like, wait, where is the school? And then you put in the school is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
You pull in, and you're like, oh, this is kind of nice. And it's just this tiny little kind of, 2 blocks of really cool, great people. And then, but at first I was like, why, what have I done?
Yeah. But you, as I listen to some of your podcasts and some of your stories, it's the same story. It's a story of that you have to go through your challenges, you have to grow, and then you don't, obviously, I don't believe you believe it's just a coincidence. You love Oklahoma. Here you are talking to people all over Oklahoma and interviewing folks. So God has a plan, and it's different for all of us. But the most important thing that we have now is just to continue to say, okay, God, I got to the point where I said, I voluntarily go. You don't have to hit me in the head to get my attention. I'm going to voluntarily try to do what God wants me to do. But that childhood was the whole beginning of everything that happens to us a lot of times. But that doesn't mean our childhood has to identify us.
No.
Because,
But it sets the foundation.
It sets the foundation for us to grow by it.
Yeah.
And I think Mom and Dad they were proud of seeing the growth that we had over, and all 6 of us has different personalities and different things, but we had a good structure.
Yeah.
And we have to be grateful.
What do you remember most about your mom?
Mom was, she ran the office of Dad's, all his things he did. She was a self-taught bookkeeper, and she was very, very good at it. And back in those days, the big old general ledgers and working on the books at night. And she was a very loving mom. But if you can imagine, they were growing all these businesses, and the business was only a block and a half away from our house. So, I mean, I could walk down there anytime I wanted and be part of Mom, but she worked 3 days a week, and then they had a partner that worked 3 days a week. And then she just kept everything organized and running. I'm sure they did do some fighting. Surely they did, because that's probably healthy for all of us, but they were just peaceful. It was just a very peaceful upbringing. Do you feel guilty about that?
No, I don't feel guilty about it. Mom was so organized, she could run a country.
Yeah.
I mean, really, she put on a lot of people get married. She provided a baby shower. After the wedding, a baby shower.
Yeah,
she just did a lot of things in the community, and loved all of us. She was really an amazing mom.
Yeah. She would get up and vacuum early in the morning on Saturday morning. I
While
never
you're
could
still
figure
in
that out. She never did have to tell me to get out of bed or vacuum the floor, So she was a very driven lady, but very compassionate and a loving wife. And she cooked great. I mean, she always had a meal, but Dad cooked breakfast.
Yes. Well, a lot of hospitality. Mom never knew who Dad would bring home from church.
Right.
The missionaries would come to our house,
Yeah.
the preachers. But she didn't worry about it because she had a big old freezer in the garage, and she had cakes and pies already done. She could put a meal out just before you could even turn around.
Special.
It's a very blessed upbringing.
Yeah. Do you still have the family oil company? Is that still around? You still?
No,
Is it there or not?
Dad's oil royalties that he owned, which is significant. It ended up being in all 6 of our names. I gave mine away to my foundation, which gives away to charity, which basically the Children's Center, most of that funds. And then all of us are going to do that. 5 of us at least are going to put all his oil royalties back into maybe the Children's Center's foundation. And it's a significant amount of money. It's amazing how much money my dad makes, and he's been gone to heaven for a long time.
Right, yeah.
But
he's having a great time.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the oil royalties has been good to us. I mean, that's how do you come here and not have to worry about a paycheck? Well, we were blessed with that. And then I was an entrepreneur. I owned a manufacturing plant and real estate and different things. You and I could talk.
Right. Yeah.
We could talk real estate.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's, there's, what you've mentioned about, dad was always giving.
Yeah.
There was this foundation of, he didn't have to, he did it through his actions, right? You saw this growing up, and mum did it
Yes.
too, right?
Yeah.
By, cooking.
Very
And
generous.
there's other ways of giving, whereas it's not monetarily, but there sounds like you had a, perfect example of just generous parents.
There wasn't, Dad drove his old Toyota pickup until it wore out. And then when he bought a new Toyota pickup, he wanted the same color and the same kind of pickup because he didn't want anybody to think that he was trying to show off with a new vehicle.
Right.
And he wore his hat. He wore his JCPenney shoes or whatever. He just never did really take his money and just waste it. I wasted a few more dollars than he did, but I've learned over the years
Well, I remember
about giving away too, like
Right.
he had
Yeah.
to.
coming to Oklahoma City shopping.
Yeah.
Come to the city. Dad would let us go shop, and he'd be sitting out in the entryway, cross his leg, and you'd look at the bottom of his shoe, had a hole in the
Yeah.
bottom of his shoe. But he was just witnessing to people, and he just wanted to know about them. And the first thing you knew, so he was a very humble man. Great Sunday school teacher. He was one of the best Sunday school teachers that they had at the church, and a great guy.
That's the reason we can't go anyplace really, because I sat on that bench with him and just watched that happen. And so that's probably the reason that, we visited a little bit, but if we became buds, hopefully and you did, even the first interview you had with us, we're talking about Christ, but we're not talking about
Right.
it to put anything
Yeah,
down. It's
sure.
just who we are.
Yeah.
And we accept other people who they are, but that's who we are. And so he was very comfortable who he was in Christ. And he was just able to share that in a non-offensive way to anybody that came by and listened to him.
Even at his funeral service, a gentleman that was there, he said, I got saved on the propane truck riding around with Shorty Gray.
Yeah.
So that was pretty
Yeah.
good,
Yeah. And that's great to have that, when you have, you guys have a big family in today's standards, but you have an even bigger family when you talk about your church and all the people that your parents and family have touched, right, and connected with. And, this web, I'm sure the funeral services were giant. Your people coming from all and stories and all these, even anyone who doesn't show up is sending flowers and letters of all the memories that you have. And, you guys are continuing that family legacy, and giving back as well. And everything, like you've mentioned, is Christ-centered, and that's the key to a lot of things that you guys do. Carol, I know you came onto university and wanted and did that route. Albert, tell me a little bit about what your university journey was like, and then what your dreams were as in what you wanted to be when you grew up, and obviously you mentioned going into real estate and having manufacturing. How do we lead to that?
Well, I think I saw Dad buy farms, and then he'd fix them up, and then he would sell the farms and keep the oil royalties, and he'd improve it. And so I was raised up in that environment, and raised up in a very strong work environment because my brother came in and started farming several hundred acres of my dad's properties. And then I was working for my brother on the peanut, wheat. We raised corn, we raised cattle and different things. So I definitely had a job all my life. From a very early age, driving tractors when I was 6 years of age. So that work ethic kind of was in my blood. And so I just wanted to make a living. So I was offered some pretty good jobs, even when in high school, by some people that owned a trucking company, a co-op deal in our small town that would probably make his money was more than what if I went to college. But I looked at the college career applications and I saw, well, a doctor makes this amount of money, and a pharmacist makes this. And so I chose my college based upon how much money I could make. But what's ironic about that is I never read a book while I was in high school because I was working on the farm and different things. And we bragged about it even, me and a few other guys. We never opened a book. Now that means I never made an A.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I didn't waste my time making an A. So I made those C's and I was going to college. And so all of a sudden I said, I think I'll go to pharmacy school. They make pretty good money. And I remember telling one of my teachers, I'm going to go to Southwestern in Weatherford to go to pharmacy school. He said, you think you can make it through school?
Yeah.
And so I did take a hard class my senior year. I only had to go to 2 classes, English, and then I opted in to take another class, chemistry, and just to get ready for pharmacy school. And I got into pharmacy school. What an amazing thing. But I still was only making my C's, because why would you want to make a B? You have to work that much harder to get it. But I made a few B's and A's, but mostly C's. And I was in pharmacy school. And then when I was doing that, I said, I don't know. I got a job as a pharmacist as an intern, my first year in pharmacy school. And I said, I don't think I can do this. And so then I changed. I checked out the FBI, and I was going to be a chemist for the FBI. And then I was going to have to move to Washington, D.C. They did the background check on me. It looked like I was going to make it, and I was going to move to Washington, D.C. And then I changed my mind, and I went to work for the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation as a forensic chemist. So that was my career path. And then that allowed me to let my mind go. I mean, Texas Instruments stock was hot back in that day. And I remember me and buddies looking at Texas Instruments. You know, we was looking at stocks, real estate, and different types of things. And then so at the age of 24, I ended up buying some land, 5 acres, 6 acres of land in South Oklahoma City. And I got a certificate of need with her help, which meant that I could build a nursing home. And so we built the largest nursing home in the state of Oklahoma at that time.
At 24.
At 24. And that's just because of that entrepreneurial spirit that I didn't believe there wasn't nothing I could do. But you think, well, that was driven. I was loving the Lord, but I was actually chasing the wrong thing. That doesn't mean going and making a bunch of money. It's the wrong thing. I hope you sell more. No, I hope you sell more houses next year than you know.
Abundance is good.
I used to say it's better to be poor than rich, and it's better to be, but at the same time, it's not. Mm-hmm. Riches or poor, it doesn't matter. So that's what I went to OSBI, and then I did real estate a little bit, and I built that nursing home. And then God was doing all that to prepare me
for this,
to give it up and do this.
Yeah. Were you here at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was already doing those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so then that allowed me to give that up. And I made a pocket full of money on that. So that allowed me to spend the money that I made just to hanging out here and keeping my kids in private schools and things like that. So, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that's context. That's just context. Yeah. That's how did I get here?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Carol did the same thing. I mean, she has a teacher certificate, and she's going to work for $4 an hour or whatever.
Yeah. $1.80.
Yeah. Or 80 something an hour. You can't do that unless you have the wherewithal to be able to do it.
Yeah. Carol, what do you remember about that time and you're here and how was?
Well, it was, I'd been here about a year before he came, and was really beginning to see some progress, because I would find things in the closets, the little children. They weren't dressed. They had a good history, and I don't want to put that out. Had a great history, but when I first came, it was an all-time low. The little children weren't dressed appropriately, and I found a closet with all these new little clothes, but they had been there so long that the sun had messed it up.
Yeah.
That really got me, because good service has to have good stewardship. Or I'd go into a closet and find all this candy stacked up that was donated. And I knew we needed money, so I began to sell. I'd probably have made my pay for a month or two of things I would do.
Yeah.
So it was tough those first, and I had a sense that there wasn't really one in charge. There were about 3 or 4 administrators in the first year, and I tell a story in this book. I didn't feel like anyone was really in charge, and so maybe I didn't put it in the book. That's the second book. Second book I'm looking at. So these drapes, all these drapes over the units have big glass windows, all one wall, and I'd look at them that you couldn't open them. So there was a door that led to the outside. So when no one was looking, I opened that door and yanked them down and threw them out the back door. I thought, well, we can be poor, but we can be clean. So cleaned the windows. And then people would come for a tour, and I said, I know we don't have draperies, but we're going to be clean. And sure enough, the first thing, people to start giving us money for draperies. It's all those kinds of things that would happen.
Yeah.
So I was seeing that progress. So I was kind of excited or I saw a young lady standing at the bulletin board, and she's brand new. And I said, hi, how are you? And she said, well, this is my first day, and I've been told to do baths, but I don't know what to do. And I thought, well, there's something wrong here. There's some leadership missing. So I went to the administrator at that time. He was really a good guy, David Lamont. And I said, I'd be glad to help with the hiring and the training. He's put me on that. So that was the first beginning. But the reality financially was still going out.
Yeah.
So seeing that progress, and actually I was hired as a assistant administrator before Albert came. I had already been promoted from volunteer coordinator to assistant administrator by David Lamont. And then when they found out that Albert had his license as a nursing home administrator, then it's one of those things God prepared him. He was already going through, he had your license, didn't you?
Because I was building a nursing home.
So he had to do it. Well, in the meanwhile, I then
never thought you'd think that was going to serve other than building, right?
Yeah, just build it. But then when I got promoted to assistant administrator, then I thought, well, I'd better go get my license. So I went to OU and took the nursing home course and became a nursing home administrator. So that qualified me to be the assistant administrator.
Now, you did the TED Talk, and we did the actions the same way you did. And your TED Talk was, I will, or yes.
Saying yes.
Saying yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's amazing how when you look back at the things you've said yes to and how they lead to either a decision of, this is not the right thing to do, but I've found out that I don't want to do this, or, wow, look at the doors this has opened and look at where we are today because of I said yes. It's amazing, right? And even one of the other TED Talks, one of the other guys who did a TED Talk that session, Taylor Doe, he did one about, his was about keys and who is the person who is unholding the keys to unlock the things that you do. And everybody has a friend that has unlocked a door for them to go through. And there's instances of this too. Your connection is your key, right? And so, your connection to buying the land, to, having that and turning that around and selling that, to giving you a license to, you probably think, oh, I'm just going to continue to be real estate and develop that. I don't need to, I'm never going to run the place. I don't need a license, and then, a few years later, this happens. Like it's amazing. And it's, there's a reason for it.
It's amazing. And because of our upbringing and our faith that we have, I just don't believe that's a coincidence.
Right.
And I don't believe that you came here to play golf, that you couldn't even play golf.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
that first year,
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence.
Yeah. I had one offer.
Yeah.
I had no other offers. It was here or nowhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
You look at it, but you're right. There's not a coincidence, and there's a reason. And so, how does it have? So you get a phone call saying, or a letter saying, "Can you come in to close this place down?" Like,
evidently, they knew they need to close it down, and David Lamont needed to go back to his family nursing home up in Cameron, Oklahoma, and help his dad. And so she said, "Well, my brother has a license."
Okay.
And so they called me and they said, "Would you hang your license until we can close it down at the end of the school session?"
That's right.
And so I said, "Sure."
Yeah.
And so that's when we came in, and we really, my mom and dad shortly thereafter started volunteering here. And she's the key to it. I mean, she's Mrs. Paul. She's like my mom. She organized completely, made all the policies and the procedures, but the governmental relations and all the things that you had to, challenges that we were going through. I had a good friend, David High. There was a young attorney. I knew his dad because I worked with him on some real estate deals, and he was just out of law school. And I mean, literally, 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning was not unusual. And it wasn't unusual even when Apple computers first came in, me writing programs on all night long. I don't know when I slept or why I even slept, but that was just I was driven by those I learned though that you do need to sleep and that you need to pace yourself a little different because it was kind of bad on my health. But it was a good time. And I thank God for that opportunity. And then again, what really fills my soul is these kids and these families. And so all these stories we're telling you are insignificant. It's just, I mean, it's not because God uses it all in different ways, but in the overall scope of things, you just want your life to represent Christ in a way that would be pleasing to Him. And so that's where we're at. But you have to be motivated person.
Yeah. This is not a small task.
No.
Right?
You know, you have to be a motivated person, but I thank God for the upbringing and the motivation that His Word gives us.
Yeah, well, and back to I think what you said earlier, you know, talking about success and money and being driven that way. Without those things in your early age, it doesn't get you to a place where you can volunteer and give your time and, you know, work for, like I said, $1.80, right?
Yeah.
And come here and, you know, like you're in a period of time where you'd sold a business and you had some free time to come here. But those things, you know, it is a lot harder to do if you have to feed a family and you have to put food on the table, you have to bills and you have to buy a car and all the things. Like you guys that had such a good upbringing and worked hard and, you know, the agricultural background in you to give you that upbringing and that work ethic. It's not just because you guys had your dad decided to buy farms. There was a reason for that because there was a plan and you didn't know it at the time, but you know, it aims you at this facility in this place. And, you know, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll help out. I'll do this. And then it leads to
and you know, your
raising
background
money and not closing this place.
You're right. Your background helps you get there. But the thing that sustains you is that it gets so big that there's no way certain things could happen because back in the day, if they couldn't make payroll, I could have made payroll for this little hospital.
Yeah.
You know, but then it gets where I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so God taught me through that because a lot of times if we can always fix our own problems, that is not as good of a life as you know, I can't fix all my problems. And if you think you can fix all your own problems, hang out for a little longer and you'll figure out you can't. And so that's another thing that I was able to learn here is that I can't fix all my own problems. I can't fix the fact that we need a $500,000 X-ray piece of equipment, but I still had the faith when the CFO said, the doctor says we need this because it's an analog system and it won't even work in this new building. And what should we say? We don't have the $500,000. And I said, obviously you tell them, yes, we'll get it.
Yeah.
And then that afternoon we get a phone call from the Reynolds Foundation and said, hey, Albert, we got a little extra money we're thinking about giving you. I said, oh, yeah, we need about $3 million for this ADL building that I hope you see.
Yeah.
He said, we need about $3 million. He said, no, we have a $500,000 we'd like to give you.
The very day.
The very day. And I said, it makes me almost cry to think about it. I said, you got my office bugged? But
that was over and over and over.
But we see all these spectacular things that we think that we do. But in reality, we've learned to say, no, it's all dependent upon Him.
Yeah.
We work like it all depends on us, but it's all dependent upon Him because you don't build what was happening here, that $150 or $60 million building, the master's plan. The reason we call it the master's plan is because the only way we could achieve it is the master be involved in this. So the master is far bigger and greater than any plans that we can make.
Yeah. Well, and you know,
I was shaking my finger at you now.
Well, and you know, looking at the board behind you with some key dates on it, you know, you mentioned, you know, the Donald W. Reynolds Foundation, you know, and that phone call, and then you also 95, you know, you get a gift for $9.77 million. Like this, like I said, this keeps happening.
Yes, and look, we're in the Chickasaw room.
Yeah.
You know, all these different organizations, the Bank First, the Hobby Lobby room, several rooms over there, all these different, the Gaylords, the Zero Foundation out of Tulsa. It just goes on and on of people that have supported this organization. And that is just humbling as all get out.
Yeah.
Because this place was built with two relatively enthusiastic people, but at the same time, it was built through the hard work and tears of this community.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful for that.
You mentioned mom and dad coming to volunteer as well and bringing them into this facility. For both of you, what was the key moments in your when you arrive here that you think, I am going to devote the rest of my life to this?
Never. I never said I'm going to devote the rest of my life. I came to close it down. So every year I would say, okay, I was always looking for
farm.
I'm going back to, I used to say, I'm going back to the farm, every year. And so every year I say, well, I got this, I'm going to go back to the farm. In other words, because I still had that drive to want to do these.
Sure.
But I did. The Children's Center did not hurt me by any stretch, but I never did.
Yeah.
And so, but I always had God's will into that deal. But I was always going back to the farm, and she would say, would you not say that? But that
just
would
another year.
We have a chapter in here
Yeah.
titled Test of Surrender.
Okay.
And we all have test of surrender. And one of the stories in here, Albert tells about what he went through personally with he had twins, the surgery that his little Justin had to have. And I think God even used that to help him to have such a passion and heart for the families that go through these things. There was it was a relinquishment, a test of surrender. We have those moments, and I think that's in all of our lives. So there's kind of an interesting story what he went to emotionally when that happened, loving this child, wanting the very best for him, but has a major issue. Now, God, miraculous, it all came out great, but it did something deep in his heart that he wasn't as quick to want to go back to the farm.
Right.
Well, I want God's will. I want to surrender to him.
Yeah.
And for my type of personality, that's kind of hard. You could see how that's hard.
I was going to ask my next.
So that's hard. That's harder to do. But if you don't go voluntarily, I think God will help teach us a few lessons to help us learn those things, because that's what he wants us to be. And I think the older I become, the more patient I am and the more resolved I am to honor and serve him.
Yeah.
So it's like I still have the drive, but at the same time, I have the desire to serve him.
And know that he's in control.
And he's in control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you miss the farm?
Yeah.
You do?
Well,
miss the early mornings, the cattle.
You miss the cattle, and you miss
Yeah.
eating the dirt on wheat combine.
Yeah, right. But you don't miss your hands hurting.
Yeah.
It's freezing. Right?
No.
Yeah.
There's some amazing stories even in this book about how God spares our life. And I'm not going to tell all the story of that because
Yeah.
it's in the book.
We'll link that below if people
But
listen.
Albert had two major instances where, as a child, that his life was nearly taken. And tells a story about how God warned our mom sitting in the office. She said, she will say, I heard an audible voice. I don't know, but it spoke to her heart and it said, you better pray because something bad's getting ready to happen.
Yeah.
She stood up, threw her hands up and prayed. And sure enough, it was an amazing thing that God spared his life. So I'm sure glad he
He
did.
does that. And
Yeah.
I believe that is absolutely true. I got some of the evidence to prove
Yeah.
what happened, but I think it happens to all of us to a
Yes.
certain extent.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even know it. God spared us,
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean,
and you have to know it.
that's what I was about to say. Like for me personally, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I wouldn't consider myself even today as growing up at SNU and growing up not in a Christian home, but my nan went to chapel, on the weekends, mostly for social reasons. And then at the end of my granddad's life, we always recited the Lord's Prayer in school as a kid, always. And I never understood why. Because it wasn't as kind of open and I'm not going to say it wasn't pushed on us, but it wasn't just as part of society as much as it is in Oklahoma City.
Right.
And school here. And so I was aware of it, but never I didn't have the experience of going to a Sunday school or going to church on a Wednesday. And we didn't there's churches everywhere back home, there's beautiful structures, and it is there, but you never really pay much attention to it. It's just kind of there in the background, right? And then coming here and having the experience at SNU and, being young 20s, and I don't need that. And, why do I have to go to chapel? I'd much rather go for a coffee or
play a little bit more golf.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you had credits and you kind of had to go,
yeah.
And even like, I definitely wouldn't say that one of my greatest friends was our assistant golf coach. He's a chapel. He was our chaplain and assistant golf coach, and he's one of my best friends today. And, we talk a lot about kind of faith and how, it evolves around my life and his life. And he's a pastor, so he's very involved in it. But we kind of relate it to golf more. But I still, not that I wouldn't say I struggle with it, but I think we're a lot alike in that way of like, I have to be pushed, there has to be an example, right? Because maybe I find ways to be busy,
right?
I don't give it the time of day, or there's a reason something happens, and I'm 35 years old and probably still fighting it, because I want to be successful, I want to do things, and I want to chase playing golf all over the world and cars and fast things and be, all the guy things, right? But there's definitely times, I'd probably say more recently in the last 3 to 5 years, that I kind of sit around and I'm looking at everything I have as a way, in my life and my 2 dogs, and I have achieved a lot of the things that I said I wanted to do, and it's putting the phone down and stop looking at what's next to just sitting there and being like, what is kind of true peace and true meaning, and what it is that we're here to do. And so I'm definitely in that phase of life right now. Like, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I ignoring? Right? What are the reasons that we're doing this podcast today? And it's today that we're doing it, or definitely being more aware of that. And maybe that comes with age. I don't know.
I think it comes with age and just wisdom. And I think that's the healthy thing.
Yeah.
And that we just question, what am I doing? And I used to tell people, well, if there is a God, I even gave those people that didn't even know whether there was a God. I said, but wouldn't you kind of want to follow him? And the answer would be yes to everyone. And so I know what he's done for our lives, and I know what he does each and every day for the families here at the Children's Center, and it's amazing. We serve amazing God.
Yeah, it's and you see it daily here.
Yeah,
right. The examples. We're in the lobby outside, and these kids are coming in. There's 2 little girls wearing their cowboy boots, and they're happy as can be.
That was sweet, wasn't it?
Right. And just and the kids exiting too. Right. You said miracles happen here, and there's all these smiling faces coming and going. And thankfully the smiling faces outweigh the unhappy faces and the sad faces, because, unfortunate things happen here, but there's a reason that people come here to get the greatest service that this place provides, because it is all 77 counties.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Bethany,
Oklahoma,
little Bethany city in this area, right? Like the reach is far and wide, and it's even outside of the state too. And would love to hear you share some stories of just, what your experience is as far as the kind of web that this facility provides around all 77 counties and, the surrounding states too.
I appreciate you, man. I mean, you're legit. And so I appreciate the love that you have for your humanity, that you have for the kids here. And this is the second time you've been here with us, and you've interviewed some of our other people. So we are very grateful for all the things that you're doing for us.
On Sunday, we have a church service for the families and the children. And what's so beautiful on Sunday, this young man who's been in a wheelchair and from an accident on a ventilator, but off of the ventilator, but he's been coming in his wheelchair. But this Sunday he came walking in.
Yeah.
And I said, look who walked in.
We all gave him a hand. Yeah.
It was so exciting.
Yeah.
He has the biggest smile. You could just look at him, and the joy that you sense with families and the children.
Yeah.
So sometimes they're really, it's all those little things, but that's pretty big.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big
That's
one.
pretty,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big one.
Crossing Community Church pipes it in to us.
Yeah.
And then they have some Mid-America students. They come over and volunteer and works with the kids. And then a few people comes just so they can have a church service.
But
That's the reason I said, if you're not going to church Sunday, come to our place.
Yeah. That's
Crystal's mama even came last Sunday.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and we need to get Crystal on the show to share her story and her connection to this place. So we've taken this great tour, thanks to both of you for showing and just sharing your story and the history of this building. But this building is called the Great Family Tower. So I would love to hear some stories of not how it makes you feel to have your name on the side of the building, because for both of you and listening to your story, and I'm sure your family too, that doesn't mean anything to you guys. Meaning, you don't want to drive by a building that says my name on the side.
No,
that
we
doesn't
didn't.
fill you up. But what fills you up is what happens inside this building.
Yeah. Well, they would never get our name on the building if they asked permission from us.
No.
So Nico Gomez and the board decided to name this the Great Family Tower. And we
argued about it.
Oh, did we really?
Notice it wasn't named Albert and Carol's Tower.
Sure.
It was they knew how they could get to us by honoring our mom and dad. Our mom and dad's pictures on this particular, when you walk into the entryway, honoring them, and so we're perfectly fine with that. It is a big honor to see them honored like that, because they honored Christ throughout their life, and that's what you want. When you see individuals, you want to say, what was important to them? Well, Christ was important to them, and so that makes us feel good about this building. And then building is completed 7 years ago, and then when you see the overall complex, I mean, the 1999 building, $10 million, to the first rehab building, right at $10 million, to storm shelters that we built, and then see all the donor walls of all the different foundations, the Noble, the Maybe Foundation, all the different individuals that's given money to these projects is absolutely has to be inspiring to us as a society, that they care for kids that can't do it all on their own.
You walk down this hall, you go right, I call it Maddie's Town. But you take a look at that, it's pretty spectacular.
A school bus in there.
There's
and
a school
car.
bus in there. You just
You've
will
seen it,
not,
haven't you?
you will
Yeah,
not
in a house.
believe
Yeah,
what, and Maddie's Diner.
Yeah.
But they had something else, not anything wrong with Bethany's Diner, but I saw that. I said, no, this is Maddie's Diner. So we had it repainted. Maddie's Diner. And then on top of that, the ballpark.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the ballpark out there.
Miracle Stadium.
Yeah.
And you talk about fun to see these children, not just our children here, but children who live at home. They're doing a lot of different activities for the community, and see those little children out there hitting a ball. And sometimes they're being pushed in a wheelchair, and we're all hollering and happy for it. It's pretty spectacular what God has provided.
Terry Fakes from Crossings Church, and he works for the Hobby Lobby family also. He goes to Israel a lot, and I had a chance to go with him a few years back. And they do all these archives. And then when they dig up these cities, they can see what's important, like the worship place might be in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And he said, if this place was covered up and you saw all the ball fields and all the different activities that you have, that you would say there's something very important here that they're celebrating. And there is. Those kids are very important, and they deserve to have all the different things that the community has provided and the God has provided.
One thing I say in orientation, but I said, I believe this with all my heart. This is a sacred work. We're standing on sacred ground. I really believe that when you look back and see how God brought this with Maddie Mallory, and for it to continue for over now 127 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It really is an amazing work, and it's been a joy. It's been a real, true joy for us to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So
That's fabulous. I mean, I thank you for opening up and telling your stories and, sharing your legacy, and obviously the book we have, which for people listening, I'll link below. You can go read the book. The website link will be in the description. Go check it out. Hear those 127 years and those stories that are in there. For people listening, we'll catch you next episode. But actually, before I say that, come take a tour. I'm going to remind you
Yes.
again that go on the website, also link below. Come take a tour of this facility because it is incredible. And yeah, for people listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other. If you're looking for a way to make a real difference, check out Bethany Children's Health Center. They're helping children reach their full potential as a leader in pediatric rehabilitation. They're also building a new outpatient center of excellence, and it's going to be a landmark right on Route 66. Want to learn more or even schedule a tour? Just head to bethanychildrens.org and click on the Ways to Give tab. That's bethanychildrens.org.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.